Matt, it was nice of you to wear a suit tonight.
You're welcome. Just for you.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I know it's just call this with the flag. You, I know it's in,
Is the mayor's audio
we
cutting
will
out for everybody?
start with the Brent Holbert.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Justice for all. Only give me 1 second. I'll join with the iPad.
1 second.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
Okay. I grabbed Linda's iPad. For those of you that don't think we need City Hall Wi-Fi upgrade or internet upgrades, we probably need a few over at the Senior Center. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Alderman Blocker. Alderman Wilson got it. Second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, consent agenda is approved. Next item on the agenda is the committee reports. Alderman Sarver, it's your last final quiz.
Can you hear me? We have one item on the agenda, recommended approval to changes to 2018 residential codes. And also Jack reported that 17, we have 17 residential permits in 2020. That was it.
We had a couple updates on commercial also. Those of you who haven't been by, we've got the Price Chopper and Porters well underway. I was out at White Iron Ridge yesterday. They have walls up, doing a lot of construction out there, and talked to a few other commercial developers interested in building stuff here. Next item on the agenda is City Administrator's reports. And Ms. Wagner, do you have anything to report?
A few items included in your packet is the schedule for proposed Parks and Recreation Month events. Brittany is working to put together a good plan for events in July. We will follow Clay County Public Health Center requirements or regulations with regard to social distancing, as well as size of events, but we hope to be able to continue with those events. We have also, and we'll have information later in the packet with regard to fall programming. We are moving forward with that, again, following Clay County Public Health Center guidelines. So there may be some changes, but we are proceeding as that would occur. I do want to note, in light of recent events at the national level, want to take just a second to provide some information with regard to our police department. The chief and command staff are currently reviewing high-risk policies, including use of force review board, taser use, officer-involved shooting policies, and bias-based policing policies. Smithville has utilized in-car video for more than 20 years. We have body-worn cameras, and if those have been utilized since 2016. In 2019, all in-car and body-worn video was replaced and upgraded. All sworn police officers complete annual post-approved training on implicit bias. This helps individuals to recognize cultural bias that may exist and provide strategies in order to respond. Officers are trained in de-escalation when they attend a week-long crisis intervention training. Currently, 14 of our 17 frontline officers have been to CIT training. Our goal is to provide that training to 100% of staff on crisis intervention. Every use of force is reviewed by command staff. If the use of force results in death or serious physical injury, a use of force review board will be convened. This board, in addition to any outside agency or multi-agency investigation, this is an ongoing process. I would recommend, I've had some discussions with different members of the board, and I'm sure this is information we can talk about later in either this or the second meeting, but I would recommend a work session probably sometime this fall to talk through those policies and provide some information on the processes that we do go through and some additional information with regard to the department. So I wanted to let you all know that's something that we have been thinking about and are aware of in light of not only the tragic circumstances of late, but just in general best practices. We do have 2 meetings scheduled in July, July 7th and 21st. And I believe, Mayor, we have spoken about continuing those in the Zoom format. Construction continues in the meeting room. We hope to we'll monitor Clay County Public Health Center guidelines as well. Those changed last night to allow up to 250 people in gatherings, but physically distance may still create some issues in our board meeting room. We can work through that as that time comes. A lot of the work sessions over the next couple months will be related to development of the budget. That's all I have this evening, Mayor.
Cynthia, I've got a question.
Uh-huh.
On that review board, does it specify who serves on that review board?
I have to defer to the chief on that one.
It does. Excuse me. It has the policy outlines a list of personnel on that board, and that there's a minimum of 5 on the review board if it's convened. It includes, I'm going from memory, it includes a supervisor that's not the officer's involved direct supervisor, the supervisor that supervises that officer. If we have a on-staff in-house trainer on, let's say if it was a use of taser, that our taser instructor, at least one individual from an outside agency, and I'm drawing a blank at the final one.
Okay.
But yeah, it outlines that, and we can get copies of that out to everybody if you'd like.
I'd like to see that.
Sure.
Jason, I think that would be something that obviously would be included in that review and kind of some additional information. We'll also be reviewing a number of the policies and city code with regard to those expectations and requirements as well.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia.
Uh-huh.
Okay, before we move on to our certification of election results and swearing in new people, Josh and I met earlier today, so I could give him a proclamation, but wanted to make sure the board and everybody else aware, since this is his last meeting, providing Josh with a framed proclamation. Recognition of service. Josh Hulbert has devoted the past 2 years dedicated service to citizens of his community as an alderman in Ward 1, City of Smithville. As all of us know, Josh also has another job where he works in government, and he has always helped us with relationships between the city, businesses, state and local level. I've called him on a number of things, and he's taken care of it for us. He's served Ward 1 well. He's helped by supporting improvements and expansion of the city's infrastructure, supporting controlled growth with the City of Smithville through affordable housing, retail development, and commercial development. Citizens of Smithville have been fortunate to have a person of the capabilities and dedication Josh Hulbert has demonstrated as Alderman Ward 1 for the City of Smithville. second half, Josh extended his term a little bit by a couple months, and I appreciate you sticking in there with us, Josh, because I know you got a lot of other stuff going on. On behalf of the citizens of this community, the Smithville Board of Aldermen express our deep appreciation for the important contributions Josh Holber's made to our city government and the progress of our community. He also always has the loudest yes or I in the room, so you never have to worry about where Josh is at, and we know when the meeting starts because he arrives right on time. Most of the time. He's been early lately, kind of worries me. So Linda got us a nice frame for this so Josh can have it, and appreciate everything you've done, Josh.
Well, thank you, Mayor. It's been a pleasure and an honor to serve on this board. It's been a pleasure working with everyone else on the board. I just encourage you all to just continue looking out for the best interests of Smithville. You all have so far. And I just appreciate and look forward to working with you from afar.
Okay. Now to agenda item number 6, bill number 2859-20. Everybody's on mute. I don't see anybody unmuted. Alderwoman Wilson, maybe.
Mayor, I move to approve bill number 2859-20, declaring the June 2nd, 2020 election results for the Park and Stormwater Sales Tax for first reading.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Thanks, Linda. All right. Clerk, please call roll.
Linda, you're muted.
She's frozen.
I'm gonna walk down the hall, make sure.
Chuck, that doesn't look like your office.
Cynthia told me I had to go home so that people wouldn't freeze up at City Hall.
Can you talk? I'm here, but you guys aren't here on my computer.
Oh, we can hear you now.
Wait.
I might have an idea on how we can use
Internet is
spares on
unstable.
Monday.
What did you say?
What can I get out of? Get out of
Oh, okay.
that.
I think we need another cell tower.
Unmute it so we can hear. Oh, sorry.
Maybe we can talk to Carney.
Yeah.
If you maximize that, that's all I get. I can't hear it.
Dan's talking to himself.
Talk to my campaign manager.
Somebody's on the front door again. Yeah. This Ring doorbell at City Hall is great.
May need to adjust our budget to get some tech support on staff constantly. Her screen is, I know that we can hear her. She can't see anything on there. It shows up, but it's blank. If she leaves the meeting, we'll have to start the meeting over. So she's going to come apparently join here. So we'll.
Everybody can see Cynthia's office. There's all this
Take a
stuff.
tour.
You need more books in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. The big whiteboard doesn't cut it.
Nah, we'll get you some good stuff about
If
Truman.
you go to law school, you get a lot of books.
There you go. All right.
Okay. I'd say, what did I miss? What did I miss?
Call the roll.
Oh, okay.
Call and roll.
Or,
Call
yeah,
roll.
on the vote. Did Melissa make the motion? Did Alderman Wilson
Melissa.
make the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
1 second.
I was the second.
Josh, okay. Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver. Aye. Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Hurlbert.
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance declaring and certifying the results of the April 7th, 2020 regular election held in the city of Smithville, Missouri. Due to executive order of Missouri Governor Parson, the election was postponed to June 2nd, 2020 in response to COVID-19.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the second reading of the election results.
Mr.
Second.
Mayor, I move to approve bill number 2859-20, declaring the June 2nd, 2020 election results for the Parks and Stormwater Sales Tax, second reading.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Alderman Atkins. Any discussion? Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Hurlbert.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver. Aye. Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance declaring and certifying the results of the April 7th, 2020 regular election held in the city of Smithville, Missouri. Due to executive order of Missouri Governor Parson, the election was postponed until June 2nd, 2020 in response to COVID-19.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is number 7.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve bill number 2860-20, authorizing the city to impose a parks and stormwater sales tax for first reading.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver. Aye. Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Hurlbert.
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance authorizing the city to impose a parks and stormwater sales tax of 0.5% until December 31st, 2040 for the purpose of providing funding for stormwater control and local parks for the city of Smithville, Missouri.
Thank you. Now for the second reading. Do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve bill number 2860-20, authorizing the city to impose a parks and stormwater sales tax for the second reading.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Hurlbert.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Sarver,
Aye.
Alderman Atkins,
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance authorizing the city to impose a parks and stormwater sales tax of 0.5% until December 31st, 2040, for the purpose of providing funding for stormwater control and local parks for the city of Smithville, Missouri.
Thank you. Before we move on, I want to thank the board and staff and the citizens on this one. We did our strategic plan. We heard a lot from residents that we want trails and better parks, and half of this board has now placed 2 sales taxes on the ballot, and both of them have passed. So that echoes the need for and want for improvements in this community. So thank you all for this. Moving on. Next item on the agenda is number 8, resolution 790.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 790 awarding bid 20-06 for audit services.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving resolution 790, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is resolution 791, certifying the election results for the municipal election.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve resolution 791 certifying the June 2nd election results.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
Yeah, I was curious, on those 48 write-in votes for mayor, was that ham sandwich?
I don't think too many write-in votes there, Alderman Chevalier.
Oh, okay.
I think I remember you had one for ham sandwich though.
Okay.
All right. All those in favor of approving resolution 791, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. All right, motion carries. With that, we need to swear in our new elected officials and thank Alderman Holbert one more time for his service. So thank you, Josh.
Thanks, Josh.
No more free parking. All right, anyway, Linda, how do we want to do this?
Well, do you want to do all of you at the same time or each of you separate, and I'll start with you?
I think it would get confusing on Zoom if we all do it at the same time.
I think you're right.
All right, I'll go first, and then we can go by ward in reverse order.
Oh, confuse me. Okay.
So
Please
Marv, Steve, and then Dan. So
Okay.
Dan has time to text his family and tell them to all watch.
Mayor, please raise your right hand.
Sure.
I, Damian Boley,
I, Damian Boley,
do solemnly swear and affirm that
do solemnly swear and affirm that
I possess all of the qualifications for the office of mayor
I possess all of the qualifications for the office of mayor
as prescribed by law,
as prescribed by law,
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and the state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
the provision of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
and the ordinances of the city of Smithville,
and the ordinances of the city of Smithville,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of mayor for which I was duly elected.
and I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of mayor for which I was duly elected.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Alderman Atkins, if you could please raise your right hand. I, Marvin Atkins,
I, Marvin Atkins,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess
do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess
all of the qualifications for the office of alderman
all of the qualifications for the office of Alderman
as prescribed by law,
as prescribed by law,
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of the state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
and the ordinances of the city of Smithville,
and the ordinances of city of Smithville,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alderman Ward 3
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alderman Ward 3,
for which I was duly elected.
for which I was duly elected.
Congratulations, Alderman Atkins. Alderman Sarver, please raise your right hand. I, Steve Sarver,
I, Steve Sarver,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I
do solemnly swear and affirm that I
possess all of the qualifications for the office of Alderman as prescribed by law,
possess all of the qualifications for the office of Alderman as prescribed by law,
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of the state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
and the ordinances of the city of Smithville,
and the ordinance of the city of Smithville,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alderman Ward 2, for which I was duly elected.
that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alderman Ward 2, for which I was duly elected.
Congratulations, Alderman Sarver.
Thank you.
Alderman Yuldahl, could you please raise your right hand? I, Dan Yuldahl,
I, Dan Uladall,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess
do solemnly swear and affirm that I possess
all of the qualifications for the office of Alderman
that I possess all of the qualifications for office of Alderman
as prescribed by law,
as prescribed by law,
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and the laws of the United States
and of the state of Missouri,
and of the state of Missouri,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
the provisions of all laws of this state affecting cities of the fourth class,
and the ordinances of the city of Smithville,
and the ordinances of the city of Smithville,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alderman Ward 1, for which I was duly elected.
and that I will faithfully perform the duties of the office of Alderman Ward 1, for which I was duly elected.
Congratulations, Alderman Yuldahl.
Thank you.
You claps for everyone. Congratulations, everyone. Welcome back. Alderman Sarver, Alderman Atkins, and welcome Alderman Uladall. Because Alderman Hulbert wasn't hard enough for everybody. We had to make it a little more difficult. All right. Any public comment? Linda?
I didn't receive any early.
We
I
had
got a
one,
handwritten one. Not really.
yeah, we had one email. I don't know, Dirk, if you want to speak this meeting or in the second meeting.
Dirk, you still on?
You're muted.
Okay, how about now?
There you go.
Yes, we can hear. And just for the record, so for those of you that don't know, you name, phone number, or sorry, name, address, and try to limit comments to 3 minutes, but if you need a little more time, just let me know.
Okay, Dirk Talley. I was invited on the meeting, I guess really kind of by an email. So had you guys already started the work session?
No, we have not.
Okay. So the only comments that I had were, I think just from being a business owner, of several different businesses, we have been involved in a lot of this COVID funding. And I'm probably speaking a little too early because I really just got the email from Damien and read about the work session today for about 10 or 15 minutes. And I guess the only thing that I would say is I'm going to ask the city and the aldermen to, truly consider how this funding is spent. There's a wide array of things that we can, at least from my experience, that we could spend it on, and that we don't fall into, I guess I would say, the trappings of, I'm going to say some of the fears that people are feeling, but that we, that we spend this money on things that are truly needed and, make an impact for the citizens in general. So that was really kind of all of my point was.
Thank you. All right, with that, and we'll still have the work session on this same Zoom. So if you hear anything there, if you're sticking around, I know you have some other meetings. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. All right, we stand adjourned. I'll give you 2 minutes before we start our next meeting.
Aye.
Cynthia,
Yes.
will you ask Linda to allow me the access to share my screen?
If she can do that, that's going to be the only issue. Let me make sure.
Hang on, let me see if I can do it. I got Linda's iPad.
Dan, did that work? She gave you access.
Yes.
Okay.
All righty. Well, what time is it? 6:30. Let's call the work session to order. Do we want to discuss CARES funding first while Mr. Talley is still with us on the call?
We absolutely
DIP first.
can if you.
Can we have a roll call on the new meeting? We actually have different member sitting.
Sounds good.
Good point.
Can you stop sharing real quick, Dan? Thank you. All right, so it's a work session, not the regular session, so we'll do that for the regular session too, right? Clerk, please call roll for the meeting.
John asked for it. Okay, yeah. Alderwoman Wilson,
Here.
Alderman Sarver,
Here.
Alderman Atkins,
Here.
Alderman Blumker,
Present.
Alderman Chevalier, sorry.
Present.
Alderman Yuldahl,
Here.
all present.
All right.
Do you want to proceed, Mayor, with CARES Act funding so we can have that discussion initially?
Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
All right, let's go with that first.
Okay. You have a memo in your packet outlining some background and administration and use of funds for the CARES Act. Briefly, that funding was approved by the Congress on March 27th and provided then to states. In Missouri, that was allocated back out to counties. In May, we had discussion And the board, approved resolution 2020-139, which provided an agreement with the city of Smithville and Clay County for the provision of them providing us about $946,000 to use for eligible expenses. Those expenses are to be incurred between March 1st, 2020 and December 30th, 2020. We did receive those funds transferred into our account in mid-May. The provisions of the CARES Act outline that funds may be used to cover the costs that are necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency with respect to COVID-19, costs that were not accounted for in the budget most recently as approved as of March 27th, the date the enactment of the CARES Act, and were occurred during a period that begins March 1st and runs through December 30th of 2020. The administration of the CARES Act includes a segregation of funds, and in the second meeting this evening, second regular meeting this evening, the creation of a new fund is included as an action for first reading, as is a budget amendment, which would authorize expenditure, receipt and expenditure of those funds. To allow for full transparency, staff does intend to bring every expenditure from the fund to the board for approval, probably in a manner similar to the emergency purchases that you all authorized, that is an acknowledgement of those purchases. Summary of the expenditures will be provided on the city website. We are required per the resolution with Clay County to provide monthly reporting to them. And we recommend that the Finance Committee work with staff in review of those expenditures. There are a number of eligible expenses that have been identified through the Act. In consultation with city attorneys and looking at expenditures that we have had to date, staff did develop 4 categories of potential recommended expenditures. This evening, we seek direction from the board on those expenditures, those expenditure levels, and priorities for those. The first area or kind of category that staff had identified is citywide expenditures related to COVID-19. These are basically expenses that we've already incurred or anticipate incurring. Those include the purchase of plexiglass for those areas where we have reception staff or staff that interact with the public, purchase of supplies for workstations and for City Hall, sanitizing equipment, face masks, things like that. Purchase of equipment to facilitate remote work for staff, laptop computers, computer equipment and accessories. Advertising and public education, we've inserted information into water bills, both from a public health center information as well as information about city services. And then fees for legal review associated with the COVID-19 response. John and Scott have spent a lot of time with Nikki and I, particularly related to personnel policies and the like, for the time that we were in stay-at-home orders. And then review of the CARES Act and a number of items. Page 20 of your packet outlines the 4 expenditure areas that I'll walk through, and an estimated amount that we anticipate spending and amount currently spent. Of that city response numbers, we've spent just over $20,000 in those categories outlined. We would anticipate between now and the end of the year expenditure of about $35,000. The next area of recommended expenditure is mitigation of the spread of COVID-19, and those really are related to renovation of city facilities and purchase of equipment. On page 19, there are a list of items, and then of course on page 20 are the associated costs, but that includes renovation of restrooms in all city facilities, including here at City Hall, the Senior Center, parks and public works buildings, and the public restrooms at all city parks. This would provide touchless amenities in those restrooms and surfaces which are better suited to clean and maintain. reconfiguration of the City Hall lobby to create physical distancing and provide for a conference area where visitors could meet individually with city staff without having to come into the public areas. As we've seen on the listservs around the state, as city halls are reopening, a number of areas have a number of communities have identified areas where they have conference space or lobby space specifically identified for those public meetings, so that there's not a need for the public to have to go through city staff areas and reduce that exposure. The third area in this is renovation of the City Hall kitchen and copy mail area so that there's less congregation areas. Enhancement to the existing HVAC system to follow recommendations to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Purchase of cleaning equipment to aid in appropriate cleaning of city facilities, especially parks restrooms. And then purchase of technology to allow for live stream of sports activities at Heritage Park. The third major area of expenditure is small business grants. We recommend a program aimed at assisting small businesses with the cost of business interruption. These grants are specifically identified in the CARES Act. TJ Berry with the Clay County EDC is listening to the call and can provide response to any questions that people might have as we continue to walk through this. Based on discussions with Clay County city managers and work that has been occurring with CCEDC, we do recommend that we work with the CCEDC and administration of such a program. As is noted in your memo, the city of North Kansas City actually entered into an agreement, and they had issued their solicitation for applications, and I believe in a meeting this evening are reviewing those. It's my understanding they had 24 applications for, I believe it was $100,000 in funding, and was structured similar to what ours is looking like, or the recommendation that we have here. Those grants would have a cap at $5,000. Just last evening, the city of Gladstone discussed a similar program to be administered by Clay County EDC with $125,000 for grants of a $5,000 limit. Included in your packet is information that does outline the eligibility information and a draft application and an agreement with Clay County EDC to proceed. In short, businesses that are recommended to be eligible for funding are those who are physically located here in Smithville, have a valid business license, are a public-facing business directly affected by the stay-at-home orders. That would include retail, food establishments, arts and entertainment, hospitality, fitness, medical, and personal services. And then businesses, priority would be given to those businesses that have 20 or fewer full-time equivalent employees, businesses that have $2.5 million or less in annual revenues, and those that have not received federal COVID-related relief. As I noted, the recommendations for that are included in your packet. In addition to the recommended $100,000 for those grants, CCEDC has outlined a request for an administration fee in the amount of 5% of the total amount of grants funded. And so that's included in our recommendation for expenditure. Then the fourth category is really set aside for future needs related to COVID. We all know and have heard that there's the potential of a second wave or additional expenditures into the fall. Our funding is a direct allocation to the city of Smithville. Included in the county funding was a direct allocation to Clay County School District, Smithville School District. And they received approximately $250,000, I believe. The CARES Act anticipates funding to address needs of fire and ambulance services as well. And because there's a variety of ways that those services are provided throughout the county, the fire and ambulance services for the Smithville area were identified as part of our allocation. Early in the process of reviewing candidate projects, I did reach out to both chiefs of the NRAD and Smithville Area Fire Protection District. Both chiefs have indicated that at this point, they have either received funding to assist in response to date, or have had limited expenditures. Much like us, those direct expenditures are very low. The largest concern for all of the entities, including the city, are if there were to be exposure of some employee, that would lead to them being out of work for an extended period of time. The coverage and overtime costs associated with that could be excessive, particularly if, as one person's infected and may infect additional staffing. We'd recommend that we set aside some of those funds for a situation that could occur like that. We have also had initial conversations with some staff at Mid-America Regional Council regarding the potential of creating some type of a pool where we might be able to participate in, for instance, stockpiling PPE equipment, providing region-wide communications and a public relations effort, or a regional effort in testing. Don't know what that could look like. We're very early still, not only in the pandemic, but also in those responses and getting that CARES money out. So don't know what that would look like, but could be a possibility. We also, as the Finance Committee reviewed this, there were some discussions of possibility of grants to non-for-profit agencies, similar to the business grants. If that's something the board would like to look at, that's something that we could take a look at as well. So the information that is provided on page 20 kind of breaks down that $945,000 into those areas outlined, but we right now are seeking from the board direction as to how to spend those funds. Then we would, as indicated in the meeting, our second regular session meeting this evening, the creation of the CARES fund would be on the agenda with the second reading in July, and then a budget amendment to allow for receipt of those funds and expenditure of those. One item that I would note, Nikki and I have spent a significant amount of time over the past month and a half in communication with other managers in the Clay County area. As noted, Gladstone and North Kansas City both are proceeding with their grants to small businesses. That really is the bulk of expenditures that are occurring to date. A lot of entities are sitting back and trying to determine what they want to spend the funding on. The act as adopted does not include reimbursement to cities for any lost revenues as a result of COVID-19. A number of the communities in Clay County have seen an impact in that way. As we've talked about on a number of occasions, we don't anticipate that to be the case. Our sales tax numbers appear to trend either on track or slightly higher than typical. There's been some discussion that should there be some amendment to the CARES Act to allow communities to reimburse themselves for those losses. I think that's what's held a lot of communities back on their spending. So at this time, we would seek board, obviously available to answer any questions. The information that's been provided has been developed as a direct result and effort of a lot of staff. Nikki and Dan, the chief, and Matt and I have spent a lot of time in looking at these potential expenditures. So we'll be happy to answer any questions and look for direction from the board as to how to proceed.
Cynthia, I've got it. On the city mitigation expenses, when do we anticipate the council chambers to be finished?
I'm going to let Dan answer that. He's project manager on that, and we're getting closer to being completed.
The contract for City Hall council chambers says completion July 11th. The furniture piece for the board dais, we know will not be ready by then. but the rest of the construction should be done by July 11th. There might be a couple small caveats depending on what gets board's kind of direction today. If the HVAC is one of those items that the board says, yes, let's go with that. We really need to get that HVAC piece done before the ceiling can get done. So that might delay that other project a little bit.
The reason I'm asking, I'm wondering, instead of doing a lobby reconfiguration, that we look at using those chambers for those one-on-one meetings instead of spending that $91,000. So I would like to see the lobby reconfiguration and the City Hall kitchen copy room removed and those funds put down to set aside for future needs.
I am broadly supportive of that. I believe in addition to the City Hall or the board chambers, the senior center could also be used for those individual meetings and help mitigate some costs there. I would like to see additional funds be set aside to improve the technology in the boardroom to allow for better broadcast and participation remotely for meetings like this and for all our boards. I think we've worked time and time again, but COVID has proven that the more we make it accessible to folks and allow them to participate remotely, the better off we are. And so I'd like to see some funds directed there, but also believe that personally, I believe we're in the midst of our second wave right now. We're seeing that from my workplace, most certainly, where we're ramping up things and having to create additional expenditures that we hadn't anticipated at this time. And we haven't even hit the fall wave that we all kind of expected is likely to come. So I think making sure to set some aside, but also ensuring that we get going on the small business piece to allow for some grants for those folks who are truly affected and need additional assistance is something that we need to try to move on as quickly as we can.
Cynthia, this is Dirk. Can I jump in now? I've got to go to another meeting.
Yeah, I'll allow it if the board is okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
Sure.
Okay.
I'll make it real brief, guys, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll hit on the 4 items real quick. I really like the idea of finding all expenses that you guys have already incurred and add those to back to that budget. I mean, that adds money back to your bottom line immediately and legitimately. I kind of implore you to explore that mitigation item heavily and make sure you're really spending money on things that really need to be spent on. I'm definitely not in the healthcare profession, but we get so much different advice from different areas that I'd be cautious on how we would spend that. I really like the small business growth idea and maybe even the possibility of more than $5,000 grants. There's a lot of these small businesses in town that have really, really been hurt, and I think we need to reach out to them. And then the future needs. It's a great item to be watching and knowing that this is grant money that needs to be legitimately spent. Let's make sure it gets spent and spend it wisely. So anyway, that's my piece. And guys, thank you so much for the invite.
No problem. Come anytime.
I go next.
Okay. Alderman Sarver, go ahead.
The last part there, the amount that's set aside for future needs, now, that has to be spent by the end of the year or we turn it back?
October 1st.
Has to be spent by October 1st?
It has to be turned back to Clay County October 1st.
And so anything left after that is sent back to them?
Correct. And that's one discussion we've had with the Clay County managers is we are hoping that if we see kind of that fall wave that Alderman Blomper spoke about and their ongoing expenditures, that hopefully the county would be open to cities requesting either an extension on that time, or that we would be able to utilize some of those funds, because those are exactly what they're intended for. And if we've held them back, that's been a responsible use. We don't want to be penalized for that.
So on the list here, let's just kind of, anyone else? I don't have it. Let's see, I've only got 9 at a time. Okay, anybody else? Alderman Chevalier or you, Alderman Chevalier, you want to say something?
Yeah. I guess I'm okay, with the talk about, removing stuff, the lobby reconfiguration, if we need to have if we can have meetings other places. I am concerned about what the kitchen copy room enhancements need to be, because if there is a need for, social distancing and things like that, I feel that's important to protect staff and make sure that they're not in an environment that is dangerous or that they don't need to be in.
Yeah, it's pretty tight quarters in there. I mean, if Chief's making a copy, I can't get through. Like it's not like you can go around very easily, right? You have to go all the way to the.
Well, and the copier is also very close to where our front desk receptionist sits as well. So, there's some reconfiguration that we could do, but the more effective way of doing that would be a better remodel.
Okay. Legal
So
review.
not to get too deep into the weeds, what's that look like?
What does that renovation look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're fairly limited on space. How would
Right.
those funds be spent?
And Dan, do you want to go into that a little bit? Or basically what it does is it moves the copy and kind of mail sorting into where like the table is in the kitchenette. It reduces the size, it does reduce the size of the kitchen area, which then reduces the ability of the number of people to be in there at a time. So I think can set up for physical distancing from that we would have to manage on our own, but it keeps people away in a work process from the front desk area. Dan, can you elaborate any on that?
No, I agree. It accomplishes two goals. It removes that congregation basically near an employee's desk, and it moves it kind of into its own area. And then it removes the kitchen table so that's a eliminated space for people to gather. Now, the reason there's a dollar figure of 25,000 there is it does include new floor, new paint, and basically one of the doorways in there is going to be made back into a wall so that it reduces one entranceway.
And the floor, the paint would allow that cleanup too that we talk about. It would be easier cleaning than some that we have.
Yeah, so, okay, let's just kind of take these in short order real quick. On the small business grant, is everyone okay with the 100K amount, or does anybody want to increase or decrease that?
My personal opinion, that's a great place to start, and we may feel the need to grow that as applications come in. But I think let's get it seeded and started.
So since it started in so TJ, you're on still, right?
I think he may have been presenting it. TJ, are you on?
It looks like he dropped.
Yeah, he was presenting in North Kansas City at 7, so we can get him back on if need be when he's done with that.
So I think the numbers of applications have been fairly low last I heard. Has that increased much? Do you guys have details on that for North Kansas City?
It's our understanding that there were 24 applications.
Okay. Yeah, and a lot of the businesses in town have that I know of have already received some form of CARES funding, so that they would not be eligible, but others would be. So
It's
yeah, we could be
receipt
flexible on
of,
that.
Mayor, if I can clarify, the way this information is written, receipt of federal funding does not preclude those businesses from applying. It just, priority would not be given to those applications.
Okay. Okay, so for the initial budget amendment, or whatever we're putting together, is 100K the right amount?
Seems pretty low to me.
Okay.
That's just my thought. I mean, when you sit there and look at $100,000 for the small businesses compared to $500,000 for renovation, it may give the impression of being a little lopsided.
Okay. Well, we've got 296. It's kind of unallocated right now. So, does anybody have a different further than 100K?
Do we have any idea how many businesses might want something like this?
Don't know. Really not sure.
Can we move some of that money from the future needs over to the business events or grants as needed, or do we have to have a special vote on that?
We can, I think, was it Alderman Blomker that initially said that the $100,000 was a place to start? And I think that's kind of what probably staff anticipated, that we could start something, get that out there, work with CCEDC, getting the information out there and see what it looks like. We'll be reporting back to the board frequently, and that's something that if we decide we want to do a second round or increase those funds available, we could absolutely revisit down the road as well.
Okay, that'll work. Thank you.
I kind of viewed it from the standpoint of what we spent, and what was it that you reported that we've spent so far?
We've spent just over 20,000 to date, and we anticipate probably 35,000. That includes getting doing another communication, any additional, keeping our supplies up to date and kind of buying supplies down the road, and that ongoing legal review.
Yeah. Those guys with all the books behind them cost quite a bit.
They cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and hopefully everyone who applies for this doesn't have to pay for those folks too. So
right.
I do anticipate that. I hope that we can move more funds into that, but I think that's a great place to start and then set aside for a second wave or a third wave.
I'm gonna say, I just think it looks really bad that 500,000 of this is going to City Hall overall. I get where some of that needs to be done, like in the bathrooms, like in the public bathrooms, out in the parks and stuff like that. But I really have a big concern with us spending a big portion of this at City Hall.
Right now, we're just trying to nail down the grant number. I want to get through this shorter one first. So, on the small business grant, are we all okay with 100K to start?
Yes, I'm okay with that to start.
Okay. Any objections? All right, let's move the future needs. That'll be the sum of everything else, whatever's left. City response expenses. Estimated amount, 35,277. Do you think that is sufficient?
Was that a question to us or the board?
To the board.
Okay.
I'm gonna, at that one, I'm probably okay with that because the staff has done that and put that one together. I know they've put all of it together, but I would hope that they have presented this in a fashion to, that's what's needed.
Okay.
I guess the one question I have there is, everyone have laptops?
Linda's shaking her head. I thought we had done in the inventory that we had. I mean, we've got some on order.
Or we're on order right now.
But I think, Dan, make sure that, I think those numbers on additional laptops are what we've spent and what we anticipate spending, correct? Because we know that we had done some inventory of ensuring that we had that.
I don't know if I'm following exactly what your question is, but let me answer that this way. That number there does not put a laptop in every employee's hands who uses a computer. There are still some employees who only will have a desktop after that. So is Alderman Blumker, are you making the recommendation maybe that we try to get every employee who uses a computer on a laptop?
I think those who, there's like in the business I'm in, there's some folks who can work from home and some who can't. For those folks who can work from home, do we have the ability for them to work from home should the need arise again?
Yeah, and maybe Cynthia can answer this too, but I think that those people at the beginning of COVID, in the middle of March, when we closed City Hall, the people that needed to work from home, this got them a laptop so that they could do that.
And everybody should have soft phone from their voice over IP too, so their phone travels with them and everything. So
So if they don't have a laptop at home, if they have a computer, are we able to set it up to where they could remotely access like their work computer and not have to have a laptop at home?
Yes, we did that with at least one employee.
Okay.
Yep.
And the only issue with that is sometimes it might be limited by internet access at home. Speed
Yeah,
and security, yeah. But we tried to work through that. We talked about that a little bit as the committee reviewing this as well. And the only concern with that is, for instance, a hotspot are monthly expenses, and we could pay for the monthly expenses we've incurred during COVID, but buying the equipment to have going forward, that would include, it would not be CARES funding.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and we spent quite a bit on our technology 18 months ago to make sure everybody could remote in. We have managed security, we have managed devices, and we segregated all the networks. And that's a managed service. So yeah, we have support. If somebody does need help to call and say, how do I remote to my computer? It's through VPN, and that support's there. Okay, so PPE, that number, you guys are all good with 16,000. And that utility bill inserts, is that 2 billing cycles or is that multiple billing cycles, 1 billing cycle?
That we've done one, it would be a second, correct, Ann?
Yeah, correct.
So do we need to make it 1,004 since the first one was 502?
The first one, so the billing insert's actually $319, and then
Okay.
that other $180 or whatever is for signs at playgrounds that said, this is closed
Gotcha.
right now. So
Okay, so we're good on 1,000. PPE, we're good at 16,519. All right, I will move on to the mitigation expenses, and I'm going to start with the UV air purifier. Does anybody have any heartburn over that one? How about live stream at Heritage Park?
Yeah, I just have a question on that. So we're getting the camera system. I mean, how does that work? Who operates it? Just those basic administration questions on that.
I'm going to defer to Matt on that one.
Yeah, so we were working with KC Motech, which is downtown by the square, and Aaron his system would be set up where we, as a parks department, we would have an admin that would control it. It would be secure and all through that. In his estimate that he gave us has a list of kind of what that would be detailed as.
Matt, I think we lost you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So John, I'll share. I don't know if it's the same type of thing, but for where my son plays ball, their cameras on the backstop, and they're on 24/7, and it streams to a YouTube channel that you can go view games, practices, whatever. They've also used it from a security purpose because you're able to pull up those cameras 24/7 and see who is doing what out there.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And also with that, the reason behind it was to give families the option, because right now with the mass gathering restrictions, it would restrict how many people could come to games. So this would give an option for families from Smithville, outside of Smithville, to still view what would be going on the fields.
So what would how many cameras and what's the angle viewing? I mean, how does that gonna work?
Yeah, Aaron, so the light poles that are at Heritage Park, he'll be using those, or whoever's doing it will be using the poles where he'll be setting up stuff to view strategically good spots for viewing.
Okay, so everybody good on that one? Copy room. Now that we've got a little more information on that, any heartburn over the copy room kitchen area?
Me.
Okay.
And I've got heartburn on that too. I think one of the things I would strongly recommend we do is call out what's true City Hall versus elsewhere. But some of this is stuff that if we need to do it anyway, I think needs to come from our funds and not necessarily COVID funds.
Okay. Linda, can we take a voice vote on the City Hall kitchen copy room expense, just to see where everybody stands?
Alderman Blumker,
No.
Alderman Yuldahl,
Aye.
Alderman Atkins,
No.
Alderman Sarver,
Yes.
Alderwoman Wilson,
No.
Alderman Chevalier.
Yes.
3-3.
All right, I'll say yes. So next expense is the lobby reconfiguration. We've kind of heard the opinions on that. I'll give everybody a chance to discuss this one too, and then I'd like to do the same thing on this as a voice vote.
What does that
Alderman
lobby
Shepard.
reconfiguration look like? I mean, can you describe it a little bit more in detail?
Yeah, so it kind of takes that main lobby of City Hall and it breaks it into basically thirds. The middle third, the lobby as it is known right now, will be restricted. So it's basically only that middle third. So you're going to walk in the double set of doors to City Hall. You'll be in a little vestibule. There'll be another double set of doors in front of you. You'll go through those and you'll be in a little, I don't know, maybe 10 foot, 12 foot by 12 foot lobby with the main window right in front of you. On the left-hand side, the east side, which is now just that big open space, that would become a new conference room with access from the lobby. So guests or whoever is in a meeting would be able to enter directly from the lobby to the conference room for their meeting and then back out, rather than through the administrative area, down a hallway or anything like that. The other side of the lobby, the west side of the lobby, would be broken into basically two offices. One would be for the police clerk, who is now kind of situated behind a doorway and around a corner so that you have direct access to the police clerk. And then the second room would be a police interview room, which right now is located across the hallway from the squad room. So this would allow you to not have to take anybody who wanted to give an interview back through the squad room into the interview room. And you'd be able to do it right out there in the front and then leave the same way you came in. And again, same thing with, it would put in a drop ceiling, new floor, new paint, those sort of touch-ups.
Would there be a way to, because I kind of do like the police configuration portion. I mean, I think that is definitely beneficial, especially with the interview room, things like that. Is there a way to split that and just have that interview room and then really maybe not do the lobby? Because I think that, we can probably have some meetings, and like Melissa was saying, we could probably have meetings inside the regular chamber or senior center or something like that. I'm thinking we can probably do that.
I'm sure that we could split that. We just need to, I don't know if that would be 45 and 45. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but sure, we can ask that question.
I actually like the idea of what you're saying. I like them rooms, but are they really COVID related?
So right now, when we interview somebody, they're sitting in, the officers sit in, when I was in there not too long ago, on a weekend, the interview is being done in one of our staff areas next to Nicole's office, which means they were in Beth's area, Cindy's area, and Nicole's office taking that interview.
And more than likely, they walk through the kitchen to get there.
Right. So we're exposing a large portion of City Hall to have somebody sit down in an area where they can give their statement, because there's really not a spot on the police side for them to sit when there's more than one person.
Okay, thank you.
Or even really, right? I mean, if we put somebody in the bullpen, then we're potentially infecting every officer that comes in there for shift.
So you said on the weekend, is there any reason it couldn't have been done over to the senior center?
I don't know.
Sorry again.
Chief, is that something that would value private? I mean, you got a lot of windows in here. I'm in the senior center right now. You got a lot of windows in here, but
Yeah, we've never handed out keys to everybody to the senior center in the past. And if I can explain a little bit, moving that interview room and that court clerk up into the lobby, what that actually also does is free up some space to allow us to move our detectives out of one office. They're currently in an office that's about 9 by 14. The smallest contained area in our side of the building has 2 people working out of it. And pre-COVID, while we knew it was tight, we didn't really consider that a health issue. And all that has changed since March. So if we move the clerk up front, gives her direct access when you walk in, that then frees up her office space to move detectives around so that they're not sharing a 9 by 14 foot office.
And I strongly support that this is something we need to address. I just firmly believe that this is the wrong source of funding and sends the wrong message when we've spoken up so clearly that, you know, we as municipalities are the ones closest to the people and are going to utilize these funds the most appropriately. I support this. I think we should put this into our standard budgeting process, but to use COVID funds to do this, I think is a complete and total misuse of those funds.
I second that, Jeff.
all right, anyone else before we go to a vote? All right, Linda, can we do a voice vote real quick on if we're going to go with the 91,620 estimate for lobby reconfiguration, or do you, so Jeff, Melissa, are you saying all or you're saying none of it, right? No, you don't want to look at doing a split that Dan had mentioned, or
Split.
I think we need to deal with it through
45,
standard
or
budgeting process.
No
Okay.
split.
okay, all right. So that's what's on the table right now. So Linda, please, clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Chevalier,
Yes, on a split only.
So
Alderman Blumper,
No.
Alderman Sarver,
Yes.
Alderman Atkins,
No.
Alderman Yuldahl,
Yes.
Alderwoman Wilson.
No.
Tied again.
No. All right, HVAC expenses. This is for all, is this City Hall or is this all of our facilities? It's Wagner.
This was City Hall only, correct, Dan?
We've asked them to do the same thing at the senior center. So it'd be those 2 buildings.
Oh, correct. Oh, that's right.
Would we be upgrading the air intakes for any other reason other than COVID?
No, these were not on our, they were not in our CIP. They weren't really anywhere on our list. In fact, we replaced both of the HVAC units in City Hall just from failing over the past 2 or 3 years. And this project would actually replace them. We can't use the same ones we have right now to include the outside air intake. Now, there are some other options that we've asked a contractor to take a look at for us, but this was not on our list at all.
Okay. I'll open this one up for discussion. for about 5 minutes. Anybody have anything on this one?
My thing on this one, I think with all these, we need to call out what's City Hall versus elsewhere. You know, to the point of $500,000 to go to City Hall renovations doesn't sit well. I think calling out where these funds are going is important.
What's the difference? What's the difference between this air intake and the previous and the one that we have today? I'm sorry, maybe I misheard that.
What one's a fresh air intake, one's the recirculating what we have in the building.
Okay, so we're saying that because of COVID, it's better to have the the recirculation air is not appropriate for that.
I would leave that one to the experts. Alderman Blumker or Dan, do you have info on that?
It sounds like Cynthia maybe wants to take that one.
Yeah, this is just based on information from Clay County Public Health Center. And so it's unclear that number, and the reason is not broken out, City Hall versus Senior Center. We're still trying to get information from Pence on that as to what would make most sense and what would be the best fix for those two facilities.
So I have a question, like down below you have that UV air purifier. What does that do versus this air intake?
The UV air purifier is actually cleaning equipment to be able to clean primarily that would be used for parks restrooms. That's a cleaner.
So is there some other type of purifier that could clean the air inside the building without having to spend $120,000?
And that's something we could absolutely explore more with Pence when we have a better understanding. We have shared with them the information from Clay County Public Health Center. We've kind of tried to fast track this a little bit because, as Dan said earlier, some of the work in all of the above the ceiling work in the board meeting room is HVAC, and whatever we do now, we would hate to go in and replace that. So we're trying to get as much information as possible, but I don't know that we've really heard back from Pence. I know he was in there today looking at it. So, this is one that there are a lot of unknowns, and someone from staff, step on my toes here virtually or something. I don't know if I would put it as high priority because I think there's still some unknowns, but we do know that because COVID is airborne, there are some issues there. So we've put it there for discussion to get some additional information.
All right, so yeah, let's get additional info on that one. We'll talk about it at our next work session. Bathroom renovations. This is just the City Hall bathrooms.
That, and I was looking at this just a second on breaking information out. We've got the $125,000. That's for the fixture replacements citywide. That $121 is the City Hall only cost, correct, Dan?
That is correct. That makes both restrooms ADA compliant. It moves both restrooms into being able to be used by two people at the same time. It's got new tile floor, washable walls. They become no-touch bathrooms, so it's going to have the kick thing on the bottom of the door, so you can open and close the door with your foot instead of having to use your hands. It's got, the toilets and the sinks and the soap dispensers and all that would be touchless, so you just have to wave your hand underneath. And it includes new doors, not that those are.
Okay. How are we feeling on the bathroom pieces of it?
I'm going to go back to something that was referenced earlier, how several of the cities have kind of punted some of these things to truly figure out what's needed. I feel that way strongly about the HVAC and frankly, even still the kitchen and copy room area. I wonder if this falls in the same category. I support making them ADA compliant. Do we really need to make it so 4 people can go to the bathroom at the same time? Spent a fair amount of time there. I'm not sure that we've ever had that need outside of a meeting breaking and everyone trying to go at the same time.
But during the day, I've seen plenty of times where there's been people waiting for the bathroom, and I don't know that our bathrooms are the most sanitary that we have right now. That you could, I don't know that it's going to be easily cleaned. Now, is that paint and tile to fix that or renovation? But
I can
So,
see about
okay.
a 50-50 split on this. I'd say about half of it could be used for COVID.
Marv, you're not kind of out there, but I think kind of heard you.
I'm
And then
saying
what about this?
I can see about a 50-50 split on this one. Regular renovation that we would probably need and be a benefit under our regular budgeting.
Gotcha.
That's what I see too. I can't see all this being under COVID.
Okay. So, I mean, if we're gonna make the improvements, we've got to figure out a way to get this. We can't punt this till our next budget year. If we wanted to split it, it'd have to be a budget amendment if we have the money in the budget. There's no 50-50 because unless we do a budget amendment, right? The budget year starts on November 1, and this money has to be encumbrance by October 1.
Well, we're refunding ourselves some money anyway out of this fund, right?
About 20K.
So can 20K go towards that? And I think I'd like to see staff bring forward an option on a budget amendment.
For the bathroom renovation piece? Or are you talking the bathroom fixtures also? Like because the top line, which is the one we haven't got to yet, is the next line item.
No, I support those. I think that's critical. That's important. I frankly wanted to see those happen a little earlier so we could allow access to campgrounds a little bit earlier from the bathroom perspective. But I get those. I think those are COVID related. You know, one of the things we've clearly seen is high touch areas are a concern. And so minimizing that.
Yeah, and I would actually like to see an item on the HVAC at the other park campgrounds if we're going to look at HVAC before City Hall's HVAC. Because, you know, the one in the courtyard is year round. Does that HVAC system have anything? You know, is it fresh air? Is it those different things? Because that is where the public is going to be. That's where the maximum exposure is going to be. Okay, so City Hall bathroom renovations. If you guys come back to us with a little bit of a different breakdown and see, you know, if we're reimbursing ourselves, budget amendment. Top line item. Anybody have any heartburn with the citywide kitchen bathroom fixture replacements?
No.
Alderman Atkins, you were the other no on the other ones. Any heartburn on this one?
I'm good on that line item.
Okay, so that sounds like all three. Okay, Sarver, Chevalier, Uladol, any heartburn on this one?
No, I'm okay with it.
No,
Okay.
sounds reasonable.
All right, that's at least 5 saying it's reasonable. All right, so Cynthia, Dan, you good on direction with this stuff?
I think we've got something to come forward with, correct, Dan? We will bring forward for the July meeting authorization for, in general, the business grants at $100,000 to start with, city response expenses of $20,000 so far, and knowing we have additional set aside, the bathroom fixture replacement, additional information on bathroom renovations for City Hall and HVAC air intake, and then move forward with regard to technology and Heritage Park, air purifier, and I do have moving forward with regard to kitchen copy room.
Okay. Any, so Cynthia, Dan, this is for you. Do you guys want a board meeting sooner so you guys can get that taken care of sooner than the next scheduled meeting?
You've hit me with kind of unprepared.
Get back to me and let me know.
Well,
yeah.
To add that list, I'd like to add in what I brought up earlier about additional technology for the boardroom.
Yep.
To allow for better broadcast and participation remotely.
Well, one of the expenses we cut in the last budget was the devices for the board. Seems like we're all able to get online right now, which is good. But do we need a plan for future boards to ensure they have that technology and that we have a fund to take care of that technology, because, you know, being somebody that's in IT, buying the TV is nice, but taking care of it, another story. So do we need to make sure we put some money aside for that tech support that you mentioned earlier, or Cynthia mentioned earlier?
We can take a look at all of those items and try to come up with something for review as well.
But hey, I just want to second Jeff's talk about the boardroom updates. We've got to get that done. If we're going to keep moving forward with trying to be, you know, present to the public, we've got to be really sharp on how they can hear us.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to look. Yeah, one thing I'd like to look at is that software that we've seen from other cities where they, you know, like we're doing now, sharing screens and stuff. But, you know, make that part of the plan.
Yeah, and the ability to share the agenda.
What's that?
The ability to share the agenda on what we're looking at for those at home as well.
Yeah, and have cameras on each one of us, that kind of thing. Yeah. All right. Okay, so we're way behind schedule, but whatever. CIP update. Are we all good on COVID? Let's go to CIP update.
Let me share my screen back here. Okay, everybody can see that, right?
Dan, you have 7 minutes.
I can make that happen. Okay, so I've included a memo in your packet, which kind of talks about in a couple sentences each of these different projects that are either included in the 20 budget or recommended by staff to be included in the 2021 budget. And this is a good conversation to have, just to either get board direction on yes on some of these projects, no on some of these projects, or new ideas from any board member that we don't have on this list at all right now. So in these columns for fiscal year 20, these numbers that are highlighted in blue are projects that are either underway or were budgeted, or staff recommends in a couple scenarios to maybe switch a couple things around. These are numbers that are included in fiscal year 20 budget projections. These items in fiscal year 21 in green, those are staff's recommendations for what we include in the 2021 budget. And then these numbers further out would be future projects that are on our radar that we'd like to recommend, but we're not really talking about those yet. So I'll kind of go down this list by fund, and at the end of each fund, we'll kind of talk a little bit about what the cash flows look like. So in the general fund, this is the improvements to the council chambers, just under 96,000. Next year, we'd like to include some money for a reconfiguration on the police side. And this might change a little bit depending on, you know, after we've had the previous conversation, the lobby might become a staff priority. The lobby will add to this list, and whether that takes the place of this police recommendation or not, we might change that. But this would include, this 250,000 that we've broken up over 2 years. That kind of includes relocating the cells, putting toilets in the cells so that anybody that the police department may have in custody doesn't have to use the main restrooms that everybody else uses. And in reconfiguring those cells, it would create a new evidence storage room, a new processing room, kind of shift the squad room a little bit, and create some centralized office locations for the sergeants and the captain. And then again, new flooring, new paint, exterior windows, those sorts of things. And this next one that's out into the future, this would be the reconfiguration of kind of that main admin space. This is kind of where Cindy and Beth's office is, and you have that entrance into Nicole. It would kind of be moving that around, dropping the ceiling down. This would also include some exterior windows for my office, Nikki's office, and Linda's office. And again, new flooring, new paint, that sort of thing. Comprehensive plan, that's a process that's undergoing right now, and it currently is in the fiscal year 20 budget. And then some other things that are on our radar that we don't even have budgeted, a needs study and a pay and classification study. In the police department, we're looking next year at $100,000 for a new records management software system. Chief put in the memo that the one that we have right now was instituted in 2000, upgraded in 2007. So we're looking at going to a newer upgrade with that. Moving on down to the Parks and Recreation Department. So we had $85,000 in the budget for Heritage Park parking lot, and we're anticipating still spending that and completing that project. We had 75,000 in the budget for a basketball court at Heritage Park, and this is actually not a post-tension court. This is just the asphalt court with new new baskets. Staff is actually making the recommendation that we redirect that funding to the 25,000 for park improvements by the new splash pad that's going to open later this summer, and then 50,000 to get started on the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And I'm going to jump to the park sales tax real quick, just so we can kind of see what I did here. So the other 50,000 for that Parks and Recreation Master Plan, we would put in next year's budget to be the first item basically paid out of the sales tax revenue, followed immediately by a budgeted amount of 175 for whatever the highest priority item out of the master plan would be. And it could be the Heritage Park basketball court, if that's what the master plan decides is the highest priority. And it could actually be an improved court where it's a post-tension basketball court and it had lighting. So we've kind of shifted that basketball court from current year budget to potentially fiscal year 21 budget, or if the master plan says it's not needed for future years, it could be shifted down this list depending on what that master plan recommends.
Can I stop you for a minute, Dan?
You can.
Backing up a little bit, did I hear we were putting in a bunch of windows?
If you look at these costs right here, include basically 3 windows on the police side of City Hall and 3 windows on the administrative side of City Hall. That's the estimates we got included those windows.
Was there a particular need for the windows? Do folks
actually,
want views of brick walls? Because I think that's what the view would be.
We were actually considering these projects. At the same time we got these quotes is when we got those quotes for the lobby, the kitchen, and the bathroom upgrades at City Hall. So we were looking at the windows as potentially being a help with COVID, getting fresh air into those offices.
So do we want air from outside or do we want air from inside, I guess is the question.
You mean are you comparing the HVAC air intake piece to this? Yeah, and we can definitely, obviously depending on when these happen into the future, we can surely remove the windows and it would just go down if we do the HVAC air intake now. Does that answer your
and
question?
while we're on it, the basketball court remains a high priority for me. I think we made a promise there and I think we need to follow up with it. But
I agree to that.
That's how I feel.
I agree. It needs to be a very high priority.
When you say very high priority, do you mean keeping it in 20 and doing it now and not doing those 2 until future?
That's what I recommend. That's what I've supported all along.
And you know, we've been telling people that new basketball courts come in and people are really excited about that as well. So to tell them it's not coming, seems kind of messed up.
So are you guys suggesting we do just the court without the fence and lighting just to get it done this year and not move it to next year and add the enhancements?
Yeah, I think we can always add.
Yeah, I agree.
Anyone else have a strong opinion on the basketball court? Okay, well, but it is in the budget for this year.
Correct. We budgeted 75 for a basketball court in fiscal year 20.
Okay.
And then what I did there is I put that back in and I went over to my parks and stormwater sales tax and basically moved the improvements by the splash pad and the Parks and Recreation Master Plan into next year's budget, along with a smaller amount for a future yet to be determined as identified by the master plan project.
So on this item, you know, we passed the Parks and Rec sales tax because we did a strategic plan, and people, you know, we put it on the ballot because people asked for us to improve our parks. Are we saying that as a board that we're okay with kind of just dropping stuff where we think it's good without, you know, going through that Parks and Rec master planning or the Parks master planning process where we involve the public again, and just go with where we think it fits, and building just a slab with some poles and hoops on it? I mean, we've done some things before in the past that are not fully baked out, and that's also bit us.
I never heard throughout all the discussion of this that the Parks Master Plan was going to be the place that decided where it went. You know, I think that's why we have a board and even a Parks board.
Yeah.
And I'm also believe that, you know, keeping our promises is important too.
Yeah, I think the last meeting, Matt, you can chime in here if you're still on too. I think the last meeting of the Parks Board is the one who recommended doing the plan first to make sure we get it right.
Correct. Danny Wilson, the chair, recommended that we have a plan in place. She would been disappointed if we have to move it based on park master plans. And then Jim Pasco as well also recommended having a more detailed plan for a location.
So that everybody gets to, you know, voice their, I'd like to take this one to a voice vote. Do we do the basketball court now, or do we start the plan this year? So if anyone else has any discussion items, I'll give you a minute to chime in. If not, I will ask Linda to call a quick voice vote on keeping, if you vote yes, you want to do the basketball court this year.
And if we feel it's necessary to take it back to the Parks Board, we could take it back to the Parks Board before, and they could help decide where it goes.
Yeah, and this isn't an official vote. This is just kind of get me and staff kind of where we're at, and give Matt something to take to the Parks Board. So yes, good point, Jeff. Alderman Blumker. So anybody else? I can't see people raising hands because we're sharing screen, but Dan, go for it.
I was thinking, will we get the beginning of the plan of what this would look like to what it could grow into? So we laid the groundwork, we get the slab down, the top coating and the poles as the first step, and then the improvements that would come throughout the years of how, you know, then the fencing and then the lighting and then all those things would is that what we're trying to plan out?
Yeah, I think one of the things the master plan would give us, and this is my concern, because right now when I go to Heritage Park, I park on a tennis court that somebody said, let's build a tennis court there and put fencing around it and everything else. And now it's a parking lot. And if we go and we tear out the playground equipment and put a basketball court right there, we decide to put in 4 baseball fields and determine we need more parking, that basketball court becomes an easy target for parking. I'd like to see, you know, what our 10-year growth looks like for Heritage Park if we're going to make it a basketball or make it a baseball park. I agree, we need a basketball court there, and that's what we discussed, and that's why the Parks Board had it on the agenda item. So.
And if I might just follow up a little bit of what the mayor said, the intent of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan would be planning for our entire system, taking the information from the strategic planning process, the comp plan process is looking at land use, and then looking specifically at Parks and Recreation needs and desires, and kind of prioritizing then that utilization of the half-cent sales tax. and determining what makes sense at Heritage Park. Is it a baseball park? Is it multiple amenities, and where are those most logically applied, and to what level of improvement? I understand the frustration of not being able to do something right out of the chute, but it helps us, as the mayor said, to identify what those priorities are and what's the best way of moving forward.
Yeah, because one of the is that the Parks Board really wanted to see the basketball court was not closest to the road, and the reason we kind of pumped the brakes on that one is because there would be no fencing. You know, put it by the trail where we're getting ready to spend a lot of money on trail and streetscape type amenities, and then that parking lot continue to grow and be a parking lot. So, all right, so if you think we should move forward with the, getting this back to the Parks Board with the intent of putting in the basketball court this year, vote yes, otherwise vote no. So clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Sarver.
No.
Alderman Atkins.
No.
Alderman Blumker.
Yes.
Alderman Yuldahl.
Yes.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Yes.
Alderman Chevalier.
Yes.
4-2.
Okay, so let's, Matt, get this on the agenda for the Parks Board for location and discussion, and let's move forward with that. All right, Dan, go forth. Your 7 minutes is up, but I think we got it.
Okay, so then we get into our Public Works Department. So here we have a small portion of streetscape that we've budgeted in the current year between multiple different funds. So a small little piece here, and then Amory Road. Next year, we're looking at, and you might recall from Chuck's presentation a couple weeks ago or a month ago, a transportation master plan, GIS. This says 200 here, but only 100 is listed because it'll be split with our utilities fund. And then engineering for a streets and parts building. The situation here is the water master plan calls for an expansion in 2023. And that expansion would essentially overtake the streets facility. So the streets facility is going to have to move. And we think as a staff that the most logical place is to move it out to essentially the parks building and make that building big enough for all that staff and all that equipment to be at one location. So this would be the engineering to determine what that looks like. So
going back up.
Yep.
The downtown gateway sign.
Yes.
Is that still in our 2020 budget?
It is not in the 2020 budget. It wasn't.
Okay, thank you. When
it's actually tentatively listed in 2022 right now, but that's several years down the road.
When you slide down, we lose your headers.
Oh, you mean these right here?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'll fix it.
I'll teach you how to freeze them.
Excel.
So in general, what does our cash position kind of look like? Here's our money at the beginning of the current fiscal year, the money we have set aside as a required reserve. This is how much money we actually have available. Projected revenues, projected expenditures, expenses from this chart above, which are not included in this number, ending cash balance. So then when we move from here to this year, what we're doing is we're essentially taking this cash balance, adding back in the required reserve, that's the 3 million. Then we're going to pull out the reserve again. That's how much money we'd have available. This is a first kind of run through of the budget. Produced us with just over 4.5 million in revenue, just under 4.6 in expense. So I know that the board has a priority to make that be balanced, but first run through, that's the numbers that spit out of our budget. So we'll continue to work and refine those numbers, either increasing those revenues, decreasing those expenditures, or meeting somewhere in the middle. Then we take that same chunk from what we just went through up here in CIP expenditures, would produce us with our ending available cash balance at the next year. And it's no surprise that once we hit this, we really get negative, but that's because of this number that we plugged in for what construction of that new streets parks building could look like. You take that number out if we don't know what it is right now, or more than likely we're going to fund that through a debt issuance anyway. And if we iron out this discrepancy, let's say we reduce this by $100,000 in order to have a balanced budget, and our actual cash balance in the general fund for future years looks great. So this job right here is my job and Cynthia's job, and this funding source for that potential project based on what that engineering looks like, that's my job to find out how to fund that. So there's your general fund overview. I'll go through these next couple funds kind of real quickly. So capital projects fund, this is our proceeds from the debt, from the GO bond debt issuance that we did in 18 and 19. So we're finishing up the projects that were in 20's budget. So 32 for the trail and sidewalks engineering, the South Commercial Sidewalks project that's already complete, the Main Street Trail project that's out to bid right now, and reimbursement from the Recreation Trails Program grant for the Main Street Trail project. Then we also have the engineering and a piece of the downtown streetscape phase 2, or the east phase of that project coming out of this fund. There's no additional revenues in this fund at all other than that Recreation Trails Program reimbursement. And we need to spend this money by March of 2021. So we've included $300,000 for the end of the Streetscape East project here to basically use up that money. It takes it, according to this, to just under $2,000. But as this number comes in as a bid award by the board, we'll refine this, and then whatever's left is what we're going to recommend that we spend out of 2021, so that these funds get spent and they're done. And I believe I said March of 2021 for this, but it's March of 2022. I apologize. So that'll use up all the GO bond revenue and nothing further in that fund. Capital improvement sales tax. This is the associated sales tax with that GO bond. This sales tax funds that debt repayment. So a lot of these, all of these non-CIP expenses that you see, that's transferring money to pay those debt payments. Whatever money we collect in sales tax over what's needed for the debt repayments, we can use for CIP projects. So we've budgeted through a budget amendment to spend a piece of that money in this year's budget for also the Streetscape East project. And then we've loosely identified those excess proceeds in the future for the gateway sign and the north phase, which takes it to the bridge, and then potentially even past the bridge if we get a grant from MARC. And then cash flow wise here, we're looking at utilizing that 242 this year, takes us down to a balance of 35, and then we build that balance back up a little bit over the next few years. If we, through discussions with the board, if we determine that the gateway sign is not a priority, or if we want to move it up and do something smaller, we can shift a lot of these around. These are just, when we first talked about what Streetscape Future looks like, this is where we've plugged in some of those projects. In the parks and stormwater tax, I've gone ahead and changed that to reflect the conversation that we had earlier. And then the rest of this laundry list of items is what used to be on the general fund tab in the Parks and Recreation Department. I just went ahead and moved it over here, and between the master plan and the Parks Board and you guys, we can determine what the priority of all of these different projects look like. If there's anything you'd like me to add to this list, please shoot me an email. I'll add it for consideration. Or if there's anything you see on this list that you think is an absolute priority, let me know and we'll identify that. And then it is a parks and stormwater sales tax fund. So we've included our stormwater projects that we've kind of had on our radar. And the board, when we wanted to go to the voters for the sales tax, said that they would allocate the revenue between parks and recreation type projects and stormwater projects on an annual budget basis. So what this does is it shows our prorated projected revenue for 21. So this sales tax goes into effect in October. We really don't start to see some money until maybe a tiny bit in December, but really in January. Our budget year starts November 1st, so we're going to miss out on a couple months of revenue there. So a prorated number of what we think we're going to spend, the 175 from up above for the splash pad improvements, the master plan, and then a little bit of money for whatever the master plan might say is an urgent need. And nothing is planned into the future yet, so this sales tax revenue just continues to grow until we plug some projects in. In the transportation sales tax fund, included in the current year budget is the $60,000 for the engineering of the roundabout at the Greyhawk subdivision, and also some money for the Streetscape East project. Next year, we've included $100,000 for the North Salt Shed and $400,000 for the asphalt program. I believe in the memo, Chuck has identified which of these projects were the highest priority for him. He listed 3 different projects, and I know they were Rock Creek. Let's see if I can find the other 2 really quickly here. Okay, it was Rock Creek, Coulter, and some microsurfacing. So it'd be these 2 right here, as well as some microsurfacing projects. We've also listed some curbs and stormwater projects in this fund as well. Financially, what does this fund look like? Here's our cash at the beginning of this year, revenue. This fund, we pay for some operating expenses out of here. So the street sweeper lease, some salt, some supplies, and then the CIP expenditures from above. This would be our ending cash balance. We've kind of designated in future years this 350 in alternating years for curbs and stormwater, asphalt, curbs and stormwater, asphalt. We've increased that to 400 this year to kind of get a jump start on that now that we brought Chuck on board, and also the 100,000 for the North Salt Shed. So here's our projected revenues. Here's our operating expenditures out of this fund. The 500,000 from this list above reduces our cash balance a little bit. We reduce our cash balance again out here in 2024 or 2023 based on a grant that Chuck has applied for the commercial street sidewalks project. But
I've got a question.
Go ahead.
On the stormwater, those that you've got in there, would that not be moved over to that? Would we not use some of those funds from the parks and stormwater tax for those?
In fact, these 11 projects right there are the exact same 11 projects listed right here.
Okay.
So they're right now, they're on both. We can pay for these projects out of either fund, so they're listed on both right now.
I'll make a comment there. Since we passed that tax, I don't want to see, the citizens passed it, but I'm going to say I don't want to see all of it going to parks. So I think some of that needs to be moved over under there and not included on both.
And
our planning in the future.
And Alderwoman Wilson, that's exactly the type of conversations that we need to have moving forward as to how those get allocated. Cash flow right now in that sales tax will be really low, and so depending upon what we do there, but that's why he's got them listed in both of those areas, so we can have that discussion.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Real quick through the water and wastewater systems fund. The listed items in blue, again, are those included in the fiscal year 20 budget. So the wastewater master plan, the slip line program, the last bit of the pump station project, engineering for the Main Street water line, 144th Street pump station, the the 144th Street Pump Station project, engineering the 188th Street water line, engineering on the Highland sewer, and then engineering on the valve box pump station and zebra mussel control project. The reason this one's in blue is right now we're not even done with the engineering on this, so I've still included the project expenditure in this year's budget, and I've included the 270 for the Highland sewer in next year's budget. But if this project is ready to go sooner, we're going to start it here and probably offset some of this construction cost into 2021. So we'll just kind of swap money between those two projects based on when they're ready to go. In the 2021 budget, we have the construction of the 188th Street water line, construction of the Highland sewer, the other half of that GIS asset management program. And then since we're paying for the engineering or doing the engineering on this project here, here's the construction cost for those projects, and then another project for 4th Street and 4th Terrace water and sewer line. The reason this says 1.3 and there's only 329,000 here is because the other 100,000, or sorry, the other million we're taking out of water impact fee money, and I'll show you that here in a second. The rest of the way that these projects all lay out are according to what the master plan has determined. So that's what our master plan lays out like right now. And when we go to the bottom, we have cash flows for this year. We'll end up with a cash balance of just over 900,000. And you can see next year, the way we have it laid out right now, we're basically taking that cash flow down to zero. We're going to continue to monitor, obviously, rate increases. We did the rate study, and there's 3 more years of proposed or recommended rate increases in those. This does account for that to some extent, but we will continue to monitor those as those come in. And then obviously, as the engineering for some of these high dollar amount projects come in, we might tweak some of those projected construction costs. Into the future, this fund does look like it gets negative real quick. The primary reasons for that are that project, which is the Forest Oak Sewer project, and this $9 million project for the new water plant that I talked about earlier. We would surely issue debt for both of those, and that financials on the bottom does not account for any debt issuance. So we'll talk about those as those projects get a little bit closer in time. Wastewater impact, here's the other 100 million, or man, I'm all over the place. 1 million for the raw water pump station project. Takes that cash balance down relatively low, but we don't have too many projects that we need. These have to be spent on specific projects, so that'll build back up here over the next few years. Wastewater impact, we're paying for Woodland and Bristol this year, and then those monies also rebuild as nothing else is determined as a project in that fund yet. So I went through the last couple of those really quickly. So if there's any questions, please let me know, either on here or you can shoot me an email. If there's something that we missed, please let me know and I'll get it added to this spreadsheet. Any questions in any of those funds?
All right, moving on to, thanks, Dan.
Welcome.
Moving on, do we need to have additional discussion on the number 4, discussion of COVID-19 related issues?
I do have some information I do need to present. I promise I'll be quick. Want to provide a quick update on a few things. We had opened City Hall on June 1st, and we had times that we had identified to close the lobby. That was to allow staff to be able to clean after visitors came in. We are not seeing the foot traffic that we had anticipated. So we recommend just perhaps as early as next week, opening City Hall 8 to 5, normal hours, unless the board sees any issues with that. Now, this could change at any time if any numbers change and there are changes with regard to health department advisories and the like. Would like to ensure that the board is on board with what we've been doing with regard to reservation of the courtyard and events at the senior center. In both instances, when those facilities are reserved, We are communicating to those people who have the rental, the current advisories from the Clay County Public Health Center with regard to gatherings. Last night at midnight, those changed to 250 max. So we work with the organizers of each of those events to help them determine if it makes sense for them to proceed. We typically have, and Dan, I may not get this right, we normally don't refund the security deposit or the amounts paid in advance after a certain date. We're allowing folks right up to the time of the event to get a refund, because with those changes, like I said, we thought we would be in a step of recovery right now that would keep us at 50 or less through around the 1st of July. That changed last night. So we plan to continue in that manner unless directed otherwise by the board. As I mentioned in the city administrator's report in the first meeting, we are planning a number of recreation programs for the fall, some to make up for some lost programs in the spring. We'll continue planning for those, open up registration, and if we see any change from directives from the Clay County Public Health Center, we'll make those adjustments like we did this spring. And the final area relates to the fireworks display. We partner with Clay County to provide that on an annual basis at Smithville Lake. We had received word from the Corps that they would not issue a special use permit for that display based on current recommendations of the Clay County Public Health Center of gatherings of numbers. Staff had been working to identify alternative sites to be able to shoot off those fireworks so that we wouldn't need the Corps special use permit. However, in discussion today, we were waiting really until we knew where things came down following the change with gathering size announced by the Clay County Public Health Center. I followed up today with the director there, and they strongly recommend against the display. They have been discouraging displays throughout the county. And we did discuss the fact that this is a group that would be dispersed over a large area. That didn't matter. There was a concern really of creating an opportunity for the possibility of large groups gathering. And if we had mass transmissions, the concern with contact tracing and even the public relations that creates of a situation, something like Lake of the Ozarks. So at this point in time, we can work with the county and the fireworks display in not providing that this year. So that's kind of where we stand on some COVID related issues. If there are any of those items that the board doesn't agree with, we can take a look at that.
I'll open it up to the board.
Can I go first?
Yes.
I highly would ask that we maybe rethink the stance on the fireworks. I think that we can have it to where, you know, the gatherings are limited. People watch from their houses, you know, things like that. I think that should still go on. So I'm curious to hear what others' thoughts are on that.
Can I go next?
Yes, go for it.
I agree with John. I mean, we've gone several times, and most of the time what I see is my family might go and we're all sitting together, but we're not mingling with everybody else that's there. So you may have a big group, but it may be a group that all came together and they're willing to be together. So I would hate to see us not move forwards with it.
Go for it, Alderman Yulidol.
I am very much for the display. I would probably be out on the lake with my immediate family. As I've been, last year I was at the beach with just my family. Everybody else was out there with their families. We weren't commingling. The year before that, I was at the campground. with my immediate friends and family, not mingling with big groups or anything like that. I think if we could find an alternate site, or if we could be as close to the lake without not being at the actual core, that's what I would highly recommend, making sure that we make this happen.
I strongly believe we need to try to figure out if and how we can move forward. I'm disappointed with the not granting the special use permit. I firmly believe that, we're one of the very few communities who can do this safely. I appreciate the other communities where they gather in a certain space that it gets difficult to do. But as others have mentioned, we've got the ability to spread out, and we've done that for years. If we don't have a special use permit, I'll offer up my backyard. If you've ever been to the Hills of Shannon, the fireworks display that Clay County puts on is a minor pittance on what we shoot off here during the 4th of July, but I don't think that would actually work. But I would like to see us try to figure out how to make it happen, and working with the county to do so.
So that's at least 4. So yes, Cynthia. So I think, let's move forward unless somebody strongly objects and we have to put it to a vote again. But that's at least 4 saying let's do it. So I know you guys found some alternate sites, and we got to get a decision to the fireworks company pretty soon. So
We had been looking at that. I will express one additional, the additional concern that Gary and I talked about a bit is the understanding that on all of the orders that have come down from Clay County Public Health, they look to working with the local law enforcement agencies. So if there are concerns or things like that, they may have inquiry from public health with regard to enforcement. And that would come on the police department. So we've had a directive of the governing body to proceed with this. So we might put the police in a bit of a position. But we'll work with what we can there. We've had conversations with the county, so we'll proceed. We have identified a site that we can continue looking at.
And overtime cost would be COVID related funding, right?
moving on. Annexation.
I like
discussion.
it.
Jack, is this one yours?
This one is Jack's.
Low enough so we can see your face, and there we go. You see Jack's beard. All right. He's finding the mute button. I think he's almost got it. Nope, still on mute.
We really get to see who's tech savvy and who's not.
Yeah, we're gonna get Jack a stylus or a headset.
There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
I was hitting the screen at the wrong location. The annexation information you have, it comes in several parts before you. You've got the discussion of annexation staff report. It has 4 main locations to discuss. We'll move quickly through them. The first one is the Smiths Fork Park annexation discussion. You have a draft letter in the packet as well. We are ready to move forward with making the request to the Corps. There's some evaluations they'll have to do, as you can see, as it relates to, they have the disabled hunting program that they offer is in Smiths Fork Park area. So currently, if we annexed it, we'd have to adjust our ordinance potentially to allow guns to be discharged in those areas of the park. We can work with the Corps on that. Ultimately, we would ask that you, at the end of this discussion, to give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, or discuss what we need to do on Smiths Fork Park annexation. You've also got a draft annexation policy. We've worked on it for some time, and our attorneys have been involved in that discussion. We have given you the full version of it. It has a lot of information in it. It discusses the declaration of intent, the guiding principles for annexation, the priorities and the policies. Some of them are probably duplicative, and I think that's where our attorneys' questions and concerns arise. So you need to be prepared as it relates to that policy discussion to go over what your ultimate priorities are for the future. The third item in the memo relates to the reviewing addition or potential annexation of additional core property. In our meeting last fall, the areas that were the next priority from the board was those areas from 172nd Street north to 188th, and trying to figure out a way to make that work. I've identified some concerns and issues associated with how that would occur, what we need to do, because in those areas, we would the Corps would definitively want the county to not raise an objection associated with it, because it's in their leased premises. It's their land that they lease. So we have that issue as well. And then the last item is what we're calling now the infill areas, which is Lakeside Crossing and the other subdivisions that have sewer agreements. And you've been provided a copy of the attorney's opinion as it relates to moving forward with what to do on the infill areas in those subdivisions with sewer subscription agreements. That's the overview of everything. There is a lot of information. What I'd prefer to do at this point now would be to throw it to you all to discuss in whichever order you seem appropriate. The staff report may be the easiest way in that logical order, but we really want your input on this as to how and what you need or want to see.
So I think at every retreat we've had and every meeting we've had about annexation, Smith's Fork's been #1 priority. I think the stipulation on the hunting is acceptable. Does anyone disagree? All right, Jack, I think you have your direction on that one.
I appreciate it, Mayor.
Secondly, I'd like to spend more time on the policy at a different work session, since we're a little over time right now, and give some time to think through some of those things. Anyone disagree on that?
I agreed. I think it'd be good to get legal advice on some of this as well.
Okay.
In an appropriate session.
Yeah. And then on the other ones with the golf course, Jack, I think that's still one of the priority areas. So I think we could start having those conversations, and maybe wait till, we're going to see some changes in the county in January because both commissioners are not running. So we may need to wait on those, but if we could at least get the research done and have that teed up. Does that cover everything you needed?
The only other thing is the infill areas. If I could go into that real quick, and that would be part of the attorney memo that you have from John. It relates to the processes of how we go through this. Some of it for the infill, some of it generally. On the 7 o'clock or the final meeting tonight, we have an annexation public hearing. It is based upon our attorney's advice as it relates to the method we've been using for holding public hearings. We have used the delegation of authority to the Planning Commission from the board. And under our attorney's advice, they recommend we no longer do that, and that we hold the actual public hearing for any annexation before you first. Then if there's a zoning or any of the other issues, it can go back to the Planning Commission afterwards.
Okay.
So, and
Yeah,
you'll
I
see
think
that tonight.
Yeah, and I think on the ones with the infill, with the sewer agreements and things like that, I think the recommendation in the packet is what we should do. We should get it. I mean, these people are supposed to annex in and they haven't done it. So we need to force them a little, or remind them of that via the court system, I think it needs to get moving.
Well, my recommendation was to do that.
Yeah.
And whether it's an involuntary or voluntary means, there will be some litigation on that. It's got to be both ways. But we're
Yeah.
still giving them a chance to voluntarily do it.
Yeah, we have an agreement. They were supposed to do it. So now, just like anything else, right? We if it's got to go to, now our next option is court. So
Well, that will come back with start with the process back to you all on involuntary, and then we can package it and put it all together like we've set out in the memo. But that
Yep.
tells you what we want to do or what you want to do.
yeah, does anybody disagree with that?
Okay.
We literally have houses next door to each other that are outside of city limits, right, Jack?
Yes.
So for code enforcement, policing, everything, it makes it very difficult. Ewa wrote it, I think she wrote it, or took a warning or ticket to somebody that was neighbors with somebody else that ended up being out of city limits, right? So.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, John.
47, yeah.
Yeah, John, I think you have your direction.
Okay, I do.
All right. Anything else? I'd like to adjourn. Do you have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Do you have a second?
Second.
Wilson, I think was a second there. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no. I'll give everybody a 5-minute bio break. We'll start at 8:25.
Mayor, Cynthia, I didn't think I was needed on the next one. I just want to make sure.
You are correct.
All right.
Yeah,
Good night,
cut
everybody.
the bill off. Stop charging. Oh.
Thanks, John.
Take care.
Oh,
Melissa, you're not on mute.
sorry.
Chevalier, you're not on mute. No, I'm just kidding.
I think I would have got some complaints by now if I was.
Nah, you wouldn't have, man. We just crack up. We just laugh at you. Any comments on Facebook tonight?
No, I don't think so.
Dan, did you take a picture of yourself getting sworn in?
Yeah, Sarah recorded it also and posted it.
Sarah posted. I think there's some comments on what Sarah posted.
This is my first Zoom meeting too.
Well, congratulations.
I think I figured out most of it.
It's fairly intuitive.
I can just get my dogs to stop barking in the background. It'd be great.
The freeze frame that Blumker posted is the is you with your hand out. You got a picture of it for you too.
Pardon? Did you leave the meeting?
No, he's still there. Oh,
What's that? Cynthia, you're not on mute, just so you know.
oh, sorry.
Right, go ring the, I'm gonna go ring the doorbell.
Linda had thought Alderman Blomker had left, and I was indicating that, no, he was still there.
Okay, well, it's about that time. Is everybody back? Sarver's back. Dan sliding in. Nikki Lee still incognito. Alderman Blumker is not back. Wilson's there. Marv's not. 4 is a quorum, right?
Yes.
All right, let's get this thing rolling. Doesn't even have yeah, I'll call the meeting to order, and Linda, if you could please take roll, giving them a little time to get back here.
Alderwoman Wilson,
Here.
Alderman Sarver,
Here.
Alderman Atkins,
Here.
Alderman Chevalier,
I'm in attendance.
Alderman Yuledahl,
Here.
Alderman Blumker. I don't think he's back yet. You've got 5.
Okie dokie, we will get started. When Jeff shows up, we'll, I don't know. All right, so we got a couple bills, a public hearing, and some elections to go on. Jeff didn't show up by the election. He's in trouble, right? All right. First item on the agenda is number 2, bill number 2861-20, creation of CARES Act Stimulus Fund, first reading. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderwoman Wilson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Alderman Blair.
Well, someone else already seconded it, but I will second it after them if need be.
I didn't hear who the second was. Sorry.
10
All
seconds.
right. Alderman Chevalier, guys, a second. Any discussion? Okay. Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Sarver,
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Atkins,
Aye.
Alderman Yuledahl,
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Alderman Blumker's absent right now.
I think, did Alderman Blumker make it back?
No.
Okay.
5-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance creating the CARES Act Stimulus Fund.
Yeah, I don't think you read that slow enough for us to give Jeff time. But anyway, okay. So moving on to item number 3 on the agenda, bill number 2862-20, budget amendment number 2, first reading. And note that Alderman Blumker did just arrive in his seat, so he is present for the motion in the second. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Alderman Wilson. Sorry, Alderman Atkins, I didn't see your hand because I was on the other screen, so I will let you have the second if you would like.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Blumker.
You're on mute.
Wait,
He's also frozen, it appears.
we wait on you.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier,
Aye.
Alderman Yuledahl,
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson,
Aye.
Alderman Sarver,
Aye.
Alderman Atkins,
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill.
An ordinance amending the fiscal year 20 operating budget to add $945,400 to the revenue budget and $945,400 to the expenditure budget.
Thank you. All right, next is the public hearing. I'd like to thank our attorney for giving me additional work on this meeting. So I will, the next item on the agenda is number 4, public hearing for annexation of 2412 Northeast 157th Terrace and Lakeside Crossing. The purpose of this public hearing is for the Board of Aldermen to hear testimony relating to the proposed changes to city sewer rates. This isn't the right one, is it, Linda? No.
That's, yeah.
Anyway, skip that part. Proposed changes of annexation, I'm gonna guess here. Concerns can be brought forward during the public comment section of today's meeting related to general discussion. Persons wishing to be heard in this public hearing for annexation of 2412 Northeast at 157th Terrace Lakeside Crossing should have signed up with city clerk, and you must give your name, address. Public present via video conference will be given the opportunity to be heard this evening. Each person will have a 3-minute time limit. Public hearing for annexation of 2412 Northeast 157th Terrace and Lakeside Crossing is now open. I will call on any person who wishes to speak in the order they signed up with the city clerk.
No one signed up.
No one is online either that I can see, right? Okay.
Correct.
So with that, I will, with being no further testimony, I close the public hearing for annexation of 2412 Northeast 157th Terrace and Lakeside Crossing. Moving on to agenda item number 5. Do I have a motion for bill number 2863-20?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve Bill 2863-20, annexation of 2412 Northeast 157th Terrace.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Thank you, by Alderman Chevalier. Was that to race Melissa or something? All right, any discussion? All right, all those, clerk, please call roll.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Yulidol.
Aye.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
6-0.
Motion carries. Ms. Wagner, please read the bill. John, I like your eyes there. Thanks.
An ordinance annexing certain adjacent territory into the city of Smithville, Missouri.
Thank you. Now for the fun part of our evening, a bunch of elections. First one is Mayor Pro Tem. The position has been held for the entirety of my term by Alderman Blumker. If anyone would like to challenge him or nominate someone else, please speak now. Or if you'd like to nominate Alderman Blumker, please do so.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I move to nominate Alderman Blunker for Mayor Pro Tem.
Second.
Who was the second? Marv?
Yep.
Alderman Atkins? Okay. First off, Alderman Blumker, do you accept the nomination?
I would accept the nomination if so voted on by the board.
Okay. Does anybody else have any additional nominations prior to opening or making the vote here? No noise from our newest alderman. All right. Okay, clerk, please call roll call vote on Mayor Pro Tem.
Alderman Blumker.
Abstain.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Yulidol.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
5-0, 1 abstain.
Okay, Jeff Blumker will be Mayor Pro Tem again. I appreciate it. I'm going to take a lot of vacations this year, so you'll have to earn it this year. So moving on. Next is Planning Commission Representative. Alderman Blumker.
Mr. Mayor, I believe turnabout is fair play, so I nominate Alderwoman Wilson for planning and zoning.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that Alderman Atkins?
Yes.
All right. Any other nominations? And Alderwoman Wilson, is this something you'd like to do again?
I would accept it, yes.
All right. Anyone else? No one wants to nominate Alderman Chevalier? Anyway. All right. Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Uladol.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Abstain.
5-0, 1 abstain.
Welcome back to planning and zoning. Steve can give you the handy notebook for your quizzes each month or week, whatever month. All right, next is EDC. We have a nomination for the EDC representative.
I would like to nominate our newest board member, Alderman Udell.
I accept.
Do we have a second? Yeah, so just so everyone knows, Dan recently served on EDC for a couple of years, and he did have to resign his position since we have technically at that time have two aldermen until this happened and he was sworn in, all that fun stuff. Anyway, so do we have a second for Dan, or do we have somebody else that would like to nominate someone for EDC to give Dan a break? Or I'm sure Dan would love to stay on it. So do we have a second?
Second.
Yeah, we got a first and a second. Dan, do you want to stay on this, or would you be interested in a different board?
I can go either way on that. I mean, it would help me learn the position of the alderman in regards to that board, since I already know that board a little bit. But I can, like I said, I'm flexible. I can help out on anything I need to.
Okay, I will. We can put that to a vote then. Clerk, please call roll.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Uladol.
Stay.
Alderman Chevalier.
Aye.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
5-0, 1 abstain.
All right, Dan, you resigned for like a week. Good job. Next, we have the Parks and Rec Committee representative. I think Alderman Blumker, go for it.
I'd like to nominate Alderman Chevalier for the Parks and Rec.
Alderman Chevalier, I know you've been serving on a few boards and you have a senior year this year. Parks Board does not meet as regularly as some of the other ones. Do we have a second for that? And also, John, is that something you'd want to do?
I'll answer that if there's a second.
Okay.
I'll second.
This is something that I would do.
Okay. Do we have any other nominations for Parks and Rec Board? All right, clerk, please call roll.
Alderwoman Wilson.
Aye.
Alderman Sarver.
Aye.
Alderman Atkins.
Aye.
Alderman Blumker.
Aye.
Alderman Chevalier.
As is tradition, I abstain.
Alderman Uladol.
Aye.
5-0, 1 abstain.
All right, John, welcome to the Parks Board. There's no other public comment, correct?
No public comment.
All right, any new business? Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Alderman Sarver, I think got it first. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. You stand adjourned. Night, everyone.
All right.
All right,
Night.
thank you.